A routine traffic stop turns into a nightmare for Officer Blake Thompson. He thinks he's just harassing another Mexican driver, until the man calmly reaches into his glove compartment and pulls out something unexpected. What happens next will leave Thompson speechless. The patrol car's tires crunch over gravel as Thompson flips on his lights. A late-model sedan rolls to the shoulder, its left brake light dim but functional. Routine paperwork. 2 minutes if the driver cooperates. Thompson approaches with his right hand resting near his belt. His first words come through the driver's side window at a volume louder than necessary. License and registration. Not a request. The driver's hands remain visible on the wheel, fingers spread. Dark hair, olive skin, a faint accent when he answers. Yes, officer. They're in my glove compartment. Thompson's posture changes. His shoulders square to the window. His left foot slides back half a step into a modified interview stance. The shift happens automatically, the kind of physical tell officers develop after years on patrol. Studies show this posture change occurs 63% more frequently during stops involving minority drivers. Keep your hands where I can see them. The tenor of the command leaves no room for questions. Beneath his mirrored sunglasses, Thompson's eyes track every movement inside the vehicle. The driver nods and moves with deliberate slowness, announcing each action before completing it. I need to reach across to open the glove compartment now. Thompson's jaw tightens when the man's shoulder rotates toward the passenger seat. Every officer knows glove compartments can hide more than insurance papers. The department's use of force reports cite 19 incidents last year alone where weapons emerged from that same quadrant of a vehicle. Statistics Thompson reviewed in yesterday's briefing. Step out of the vehicle. The order comes before the driver's fingers brush the latch. Thompson's right palm now rests on his holster. They always resist at this stage, or so his experience suggests. The driver exhales through his nose but complies, door swinging open with measured control. Outside, the disparity in their stances becomes stark. Thompson stands with weight forward, fingers twitching near his duty belt. The driver holds himself, like a man waiting for a bus, shoulders relaxed beneath his light jacket. The contrast mirrors findings from Stanford's vehicular stop study. Subjects perceived as relaxed during confrontational stops are 400% more likely to have military or law enforcement backgrounds. Thompson misses this tell. His focus locks onto the driver's waistband as both hands disappear inside the car to retrieve documents. I said hands where I can. The protest dies when the driver resurfaces holding not a wallet, but a leather credential case flipped open to display a gold shield. The badge catches afternoon sunlight at an angle that makes Thompson squint. His left hand drifts away from his weapon. 3 seconds pass before he processes the inscription beneath the shield. The exact interval later noted in his disciplinary file. 36 months on the force, and he's never seen credentials from this office before. Cuidado con tus próximas palabras. The driver's voice drops into a register that carries no accent now, only quiet authority. His thumb hooks in his jacket pocket to reveal the embroidered patch underneath. A municipal seal Thompson recognizes from station letterhead. The kind reserved for command staff. Wind stirs loose papers near their feet. A Halliburton spreadsheet skitters across the asphalt between them. Thompson's mouth opens but forms no words. Body camera footage later shows his Adam's apple bobbing twice before he manages "sir" in a voice 2 octaves higher than his initial commands. The driver, now Chief Daniel Mendoza, watches him with the detached focus of a polygraph examiner. His first order as ranking officer carries the weight of a gavel strike. Return to your vehicle. You'll follow me to the station. No room for debate in the phrasing. Just the steel undertone of consequences waiting to be unpacked in a disciplinary hearing room. Thompson's retreating footsteps kick up gravel. His mind races through every oath he's sworn since the academy, every racial slur muttered during late-night patrols when no body cameras were running. Mendoza watches him go with the patience of a man who's seen this script play out before. Right, down to the nervous glance at the dashboard camera's blinking red light. Back in his cruiser, Thompson's fingers fumble with the gear shift. Sweat darkens his collar despite the AC blowing full blast. The sedan's brake lights flare once in his windshield, a silent command to follow. Through the glass, Mendoza's posture in the rearview mirror remains perfectly erect. Thompson realizes, 10 minutes too late, that he's just become the suspect in his own traffic stop. Shadows lengthen across the patrol car's hood as they merge onto the access road. The drive to headquarters will take precisely 14 minutes. More than enough time for Elena Rodriguez to pull Thompson's personnel file and prep the interview room. The timeline is set now, ticking forward with the inevitability of an IA investigation. Thompson checks his mirrors 3 times in the first mile, not for traffic, searching for escape routes that vanished the moment Mendoza showed his badge. The realization settles cold in his stomach. This won't end with a warning. Not when the arresting officer turns out to be the new chief of police. The sedan's turn signal clicks on ahead of him, glowing amber like a caution light. Right turn onto Municipal Drive, station house coming into view. Somewhere inside those walls, a disciplinary hearing notice prints automatically in the records office. Paperwork doesn't care about your rank or intentions. It only records what happened. Thompson's palms leave damp marks on the steering wheel. Behind his sunglasses, pupils dilate in sync with flashing panic. Every cop knows traffic stop protocol by heart. None of the manuals cover what happens when you demand ID from your new commanding officer. Thompson's fingers twitch as the driver's hand disappears into the glove compartment. Standard protocol dictates a minimum 5-foot buffer zone when occupants reach for hidden compartments. Thompson violates this immediately, stepping closer to peer through the window. His right thumb unsnaps the holster retention strap with an audible click. Academy training videos replay in his head. The 2017 Albuquerque shooting where a suspect pulled a pistol from this exact location. The driver moves deliberately, announcing each action. Just getting my wallet. His voice remains calm, but Thompson hears only potential deception. Studies show officers perceive minority drivers as 40% more likely to be armed during routine stops, despite crime data showing no correlation. Thompson's pulse thrums in his neck. His left hand slides toward the radio mic clipped to his shoulder, potential backup request hovering behind his teeth. Inside the car, fingers brush against papers. The sound of shuffling documents should relax him. It doesn't. 72% of firearm retrievals during traffic stops occur, while suspects appear to be complying with document requests. Thompson knows this statistic from last month's departmental briefing. His weight shifts onto the balls of his feet. The glove compartment light casts a yellow rectangle across the driver's lap. Thompson catches the glint of something metallic. His prefrontal cortex screams threat assessment before his eyes can resolve the shape. Every officer undergoes neuromuscular training for this moment, when visual input lags behind tactical response. His hand closes around the pistol grip before his brain processes the object's true dimensions. 3 heartbeats pass. The metallic object resolves into a badge holder, not a weapon. Thompson's fingers relax incrementally, but his shoulders remain tense. Policy requires officers to maintain defensive postures until credentials are verified. The driver rotates the badge toward the window with 2 fingers, angling it to catch the afternoon sun. The gold shield reflects light directly into Thompson's face. He blinks against the glare, but not before reading the insignia. Municipal Police Headquarters. Command Staff. His breath hitches. The Latin motto etched beneath the badge, Fidelis ad mortem, confirms what the officer already fears. This isn't just another cop. This is ranking brass. Protocol demands Thompson immediately identify himself and state his reason for the stop. His mouth opens but produces only dry air. The driver, no, the chief, watches him through the window with unnerving stillness. Not the nervous energy of civilians caught in traffic stops. The calculated calm of someone who's conducted hundreds of these encounters from the other side. Footage from later reviewed body cameras shows Thompson's exact sequence of reactions. The rapid dilation of pupils. The unconscious step backward. The Adam's apple bobbing twice before he manages "sir" in a voice 3 tones higher than his initial commands. His right hand drifts away from his holster like it's suddenly radioactive. The chief says nothing. He doesn't need to. The badge speaks for him, its presence rewriting the entire power dynamic of the stop. Thompson's mind races through the chain of command. He's been on the force 3 years but has never actually seen the new chief's face, only heard rumors about the Mexican-American transfer coming in from El Paso. Traffic continues flowing past them on the access road. A semi-truck's air horn blares, startling Thompson from his paralysis. He realizes with dawning horror that he's still technically in a position of authority over an active stop. Except, now the man holding the badge could end his career with a phone call. The glove compartment light winks out as the chief retrieves his registration. Their eyes meet through the glass. The chief's expression remains neutral, but Thompson reads the disapproval anyway. He's seen that look before, on field training. Officers watching recruits screw up basic procedures. The knowledge settles like ice in his gut. This isn't just a bad stop. This is a professional evaluation happening in real time. Thompson's belt radio crackles with dispatch chatter. Normally he'd respond immediately to prove he's on top of communications. Now he's terrified any movement might be misinterpreted as aggression. The chief's badge winks in the sunlight as he tucks it back into his jacket. A silent reminder that Thompson's every action from this point forward is being documented by the highest possible authority. The driver's side door creaks open. Thompson's training wars with his panic. Protocol says issue commands. Self-preservation whispers to stay silent. The chief unfolds himself from the seat with deliberate movements, keeping both hands visible. He's taller than Thompson expected. More imposing. The embroidered patch on his windbreaker, San Antonio PD command staff, might as well be a judge's robes. Wind riffles the paperwork in the chief's hand. Thompson notices the documents are perfectly organized. Registration on top, insurance card beneath, license visible at the edge. The kind of presentation only law enforcement bothers with. How had he missed that earlier? The answer curdles in his stomach, because he'd already decided what kind of man sat behind the wheel. The chief studies Thompson's nameplate. A notebook appears in his left hand, materializing from some interior pocket. He jots something without breaking eye contact. Thompson's pulse hammers against his collar. That notebook might as well be a death warrant for his career. Somewhere nearby, a car alarm begins wailing. The shrill sound mirrors the warning klaxons in Thompson's skull. He's standing at the precipice of something far worse than a reprimand. The chief tucks the notebook away and speaks for the first time since revealing his identity. Officer Thompson. 2 words that carry the weight of a tribunal. We'll continue this downtown. The phrasing leaves no room for protest. Thompson's left eye twitches as the implications land. This isn't a conversation. It's custody transfer paperwork waiting to happen. The chief turns toward his vehicle, ending the encounter with the finality of a cell door closing. Thompson remains rooted to the asphalt, his earlier confidence leaking away like air from a punctured jersey. The glove compartment latch clicks shut in the distance, a period on the sentence of his career. The badge tilts in Thompson's direction, sunlight glinting off the embossed lettering. His pupils contract, but not fast enough to miss the title stamped beneath the shield, Chief of Police. Color drains from his face as if someone opened a vein. The textbook physiological response to imminent career termination, vasoconstriction, pulling blood from extremities to protect vital organs. It won't help him here. Thompson's lips move without sound. 3 years on the force taught him every ranking officer's face, but the new transfer from El Paso hadn't circulated his photo yet. A tactical oversight with brutal consequences today. His right hand twitches away from his belt, suddenly aware how this looks. Armed officer looming over his unarmed commanding officer. Reversal of power dynamics the Academy never covered. Studies show officers experience a 200% increase in stress hormones when unexpectedly confronted by superiors during questionable stops. Thompson's body demonstrates this precisely. Sweat, beating above his lip despite the mild afternoon, fingers trembling near his duty belt. His posture deflates incrementally, shoulders slumping as if weights were added to his vest. The chief watches these micro-expressions with clinical detachment. He's conducted enough internal affairs interviews to recognize guilt crystallizing in real time. His voice comes low, and even when he finally speaks, "That's 5 feet, officer." A simple reminder about the personal space buffer required during civilian interactions. The subtext stings worse. You messed up basic protocol while harassing your boss. Thompson stumbles backward as if shoved. Gravel crunches under his boots, each step loud in the sudden silence. His training screams to regain control of the situation, but control evaporated the moment that badge appeared. Body camera footage later shows his exact sequence. Left foot first, weight unbalanced, hand rising unconsciously to adjust his collar like a defendant fidgeting in court. Power dynamics in policing operate on strict hierarchies, more rigid than military chains of command. A patrol officer questioning supervisory decisions constitutes professional suicide. Thompson's mouth opens, closes. No sound emerges. His brain scrambles through damage control scenarios, each more implausible than the last. The chief steps forward, now inside Thompson's personal space, intentionally. A deliberate inversion of their earlier positions. His badge catches the light with each movement, flashing like a warning beacon. "Your body camera's active?" A question that isn't a question. Every cop knows failing to activate recording during a stop violates General Order 34. Thompson nods jerkily, hyper-aware that device now contains his professional execution video. Research from the National Justice Institute indicates 83% of sustained misconduct complaints originate from self-incriminating officer recordings. Thompson's mind races through every utterance from the past 4 minutes. His command voice, the unnecessary escalation, the implicit bias leaking through his phrasing, all preserved digitally with timestamps. Traffic winds past on the access road, indifferent to the career imploding roadside. The chief's expression remains neutral, but Thompson reads the indictment anyway. That look says internal affairs. Mandatory retraining. Maybe termination hearing. Each possibility hits like a body blow. His pension calculation scrolls through his mind. 30 more months vested. Gone now because of a stupid traffic stop. The chief folds his credentials away with deliberate slowness, not breaking eye contact. He's dragging this out, making certain Thompson feels the weight. Standard interrogation technique. Let silence compel confession. Thompson cracks faster than most suspects he's booked. "Sir, I didn't realize." "Step back." The chief's first official command to him carries frostbite severity. Simple, unforgiving. A shove without physical contact. Thompson retreats 2 more, paces, heels hitting the curb. His duty belt jingles with the movement, equipment suddenly feeling absurdly heavy. The symbolic shedding of authority couldn't be clearer if they'd physically removed his badge. Elevated cortisol levels impair rational decision-making, a fact Thompson demonstrates by blurting, "Was the taillight really out?" The instant regret shows on his face. Challenging the chief's observation compounds the original offense. His teeth click shut so hard his jaw muscles pulse. The chief glances at the sedan's rear lights, now clearly visible in daylight. His silence answers more brutally than words could. Thompson remembers how he'd rationalized the stop initially. Probable cause manufactured because the driver looked like someone who might have warrants. Flimsy pretexts that dissolve under command scrutiny. Officer survival training teaches situational awareness, but curricula rarely cover recognizing when you've become the threat. Thompson finally sees himself through his boss's eyes. Just another overly aggressive cop making the department liable for another discrimination lawsuit. His stomach hollows out. The chief pulls a notepad from his jacket. Thompson recognizes the model, departmental issue for recording incident particulars. Each scratch of pen on paper might as well be a nail in his career coffin. Neither speaks while the chief writes. The only sounds are highway noise and the rhythmic tap of Thompson's nameplate chain against his shirt buttons. When the chief finishes jotting, he doesn't snap the notebook shut dramatically. Just slips it back inside his jacket and meets Thompson's. "Kurt, follow me to headquarters." No room for negotiation in the phrasing. Not, "Let's discuss this at the station." A direct order from a superior officer that brooks no refusal. Thompson's mind helpfully supplies the relevant regulation. SAPD General Order 12.4 requires immediate compliance with supervisory directives during incidents. Every second he hesitates compounds the disciplinary record. His throat works as he forces out the only permissible response. Yes, sir. The words taste like surrender. The chief turns without another word, doors locking with an electronic chirp as he approaches his vehicle. A clear dismissal. Thompson stands rooted in place, suddenly aware of passing motorists slowing to gawk at the scene. His fingers curl into fists, then release. No outlet for the adrenaline flooding his system except to trudge back to his cruiser, like a suspect under escort. Dust puffs up around his shoes with each step. The walk feels infinitely longer than his confident stride toward the car 20 minutes earlier. His pulse thrums in his ears, an insistent drumbeat of impending doom. Somewhere ahead, the chief's engine turns over with a quiet hum, the sound of inevitability pulling onto the roadway, expecting him to follow. The worn manila folder hits Elena Rodriguez's desk with a whisper of displaced air. Thompson, Blake F. typed neatly on the tab in institutional font. She flips it open before the chair finishes settling under her weight. 7 complaint forms. Stare back, each stamped, reviewed, no action required in identical blue ink. February's incident report details a Latino teenager stopped for matching suspect description. Body cam footage shows the kid clutching skateboard wheels while Thompson pats him down roughly. Notes claim the officer detected bulge consistent with weapon, the skateboard wheels. Complaint dismissed after the desk sergeant noted Thompson's vigilance. March brings a more concerning pattern. 2 separate citizens report being called Jose, despite presenting ID with different names. One complainant wrote in shaky handwriting, "He said all you people look alike anyway." The IA investigator's conclusion, cultural misunderstanding, officer counseled. Elena finds no follow-up memo about this supposed counseling. June's paperwork carries a whiff of cover-up. Thompson stops a Mexican restaurant owner for erratic lane changes. The dashcam timestamp shows 1:17 a.m. on an empty boulevard. The restaurant owner's sworn statement describes Thompson leaning into his window saying, "You people always lie about how many beers you've had." No breathalyzer appears in the footage. The case closed after the arresting sergeant declared the stop by the book. Studies from the National Police Accountability Project show 72% of sustained racial profiling complaints involve these exact behaviors: invented violations, mocking accents, weaponizing minor infractions. All documented here with bureaucratic efficiency. Elena's fingernail taps each stamp mark. 7 complaints across 23 months, above average for the district. The most recent write-up gives her pause. 3 weeks ago, Thompson detained a Black Marine veteran at a DUI checkpoint. The veteran's VA card and military ID meant nothing when he questioned why only minority drivers were being tested. The report claims the man became aggressive. The veteran's complaint alleges, Thompson said, "Maybe you learned that attitude from your gangbanger buddies." No audio exists from that encounter. The body cam malfunctioned. Elena knows these patterns. 22 years in internal affairs teaches you the shape of systemic rot. Each complaint forms a single tile in a larger mosaic of misconduct. She flips to the back where disciplinary records should live. Empty except for one post-it note from a previous investigator. Watch this one. Connects to Lodge. The Lodge reference explains everything. Sergeant Carl Lodge heads the patrol union's grievance committee. His signature appears on 5 of the 7 dismissal forms. Union pressure explains the pristine complaint history despite obvious red flags. Standard operating procedure in departments where the tail wags the dog. Her computer monitor glows with Thompson's personnel dashboard. Training records show 2 failed bias instruction courses last year. Notes indicate he struggles with modern policing concepts. No remediation scheduled. Lodge probably intervened again. She clicks through to the dashboard's hidden tier, the unofficial annotations patrol supervisors use. 3 entries stand out. 12 they ate. Lodge advised ignore Hernandez complaint. Political climate. 3-22. Union says don't ding Thompson. Short-staffed. 17. Thompson cleared for promotion despite IA flag. Lodge insists. The screen's blue light washes over Elena's clenched jaw. She's seen this movie before. Aggressive officer protected by union connections. Complaints buried under paperwork. Then someday a wrongful death lawsuit that cost taxpayers millions. She turns to the evidence locker. Chain of custody forms show 3 separate dashcam discs checked out for Thompson's stops last month. All returned with no issues tags. 2. Clean. She picks one at random and slides it into her desktop player. The video loads with a hiss of static. Thompson's voice fills the small office. Where you really coming from, Pablo? The screen shows an elderly man handing over his Arizona license. Pedro, officer, I'm going to... Save it. Let me see your trunk. No probable cause stated. No explanation beyond the man's accent and brown skin. The time code shows this occurred 2 days after Thompson's last IA review. Elena ejects the disc carefully. Her printer whirs to life, spitting out keyframes from the video. The system works exactly as designed. It's just designed to protect certain officers. She arranges the photos beside the complaint folder. The pattern wouldn't survive 5 minutes in court. Her phone interrupts with a departmental alert. Chief Mendoza just arrived with an officer in tow. Elena slides everything into a fresh case file. The label reads, Thompson BF, Formal Inquiry. No blue stamps this time. Downstairs elevator doors ping open. Footsteps echo off the precinct's marble floors. 2 sets, one hesitant, scuffing like the owner's resisting, the other firm and purposeful. Elena squares the paperwork's edges just as the chief's shadow falls across her door. Elena's finger hesitates over the play button. The digital recorder looks innocuous on her desk. Black plastic rectangle with a scratched screen. Its contents could end careers. She glances at Chief Mendoza leaning against the filing cabinet, then presses down. Static hisses for 3 seconds before Thompson's voice emerges, tinny through the small speaker but unmistakable. You think filing complaints makes you special? The venom in his tone raises the hairs on Elena's neck. Research shows 68% of retaliation incidents occur exactly like this. Officers confronting complainants under guise of follow-up visits. On IT? The recording? A younger male voice replies. I just want what happened on paper. The words tremble slightly. Elena recognizes the cadence of someone trying not to escalate. Studies from the University of Chicago Policing Project identify this as the most common civilian response during unauthorized police contacts. De-escalation attempts that often backfire. You people always act so damn entitled. Thompson's sneer registers clearly despite audio distortion. The phrase you people appears in 42% of sustained racial bias complaints according to NAACP Legal Defense Fund data. Elena makes a note without looking up from the device. The confrontation escalates rapidly. Scuffling noises. A thud that might be someone backing into a wall. Then Thompson's voice drops to a near whisper, more chilling for its quiet precision. Keep pushing this complaint and I'll find you, off duty. No cameras. Pause. Ran your plates already. Know where your sister lives too? Elena's pen stops moving. The threat crosses 3 separate disciplinary lines: unauthorized database use, witness intimidation, and explicit retaliation. Anyone could trigger immediate suspension under department policy. Together, termination material. Chief Mendoza hasn't moved from the cabinet, but his knuckles whiten around the grip of his coffee mug. 20 years of policing make some things reflex. Spotting violations happens at the speed of neural synapses. The recording continues with the civilian's panicked breathing. You can't... Watch me. More shuffling before a door slams. Then, 2 minutes of blank tape punctuated by what might be car doors. The timestamp shows this incident occurred 3 days after the victim filed his complaint about an unlawful search. Elena ejects the memory card carefully between 2 fingers, like handling evidence from a crime scene. In many ways, she is a 2021 Berkeley study found that secretly recorded officer misconduct proves accurate in 89% of cases when later investigated. Where'd this come from? Mendoza finally asks. His voice stays even, but his jaw muscles pulse. Elena slides the case file toward him. Inside, a property receipt shows the recorder belonged to the complainant's nephew, a journalism student who'd left it running in his uncle's apartment during Thompson's visit. The device sat in evidence lockup for 6 weeks before someone thought to check it. Mendoza scans the chain of custody form, then flips to the original complaint. The paperwork shows Patrol Sergeant Lodge dismissed the allegation as unfounded, without listening to the audio. Standard operating procedure in departments where the union holds more power than internal affairs. Sunlight slants through the blinds, striping the desk between them. The chief sets down his coffee with exaggerated care. Elena recognizes the tells. Every cop develops them after enough years watching superior officers make career-defining decisions. Pulled his recent stops? Mendoza asks. Elena nods toward her computer screen, where 7 unauthorized license plate searches glow, all run after complaints were filed against Thompson. A blatant violation of departmental data protocols that would land any civilian in federal prison for stalking. Mendoza exhales through his nose, the sound barely audible over precinct noise drifting through the door. His next words come measured but final. Suspension pending termination hearing. Effective immediately. Get the paperwork to my office by 1700. Elena expected this, yet the speed still surprises. Most chiefs would convene a review board, allow union reps to slow walk the process. Mendoza's directness sends a clear message through bureaucratic channels. New leadership won't play the old games. Footsteps approach in the hallway, heavy, purposeful. Elena recognizes Thompson's cadence even before his silhouette darkens the frosted glass. Mendoza doesn't turn toward the door, keeping his attention on the case file. A subtle show of authority. When Thompson enters, his gaze flicks between them, landing on the recorder. His nostrils flare. Classic stress response. The room's temperature seems to drop several degrees. Outside, a phone rings unanswered at the duty desk. Mendoza closes the file and slides it aside without speaking. Some messages don't require words. Thompson's jaw works, but no sound emerges. His fingers twitch toward his belt where handcuffs normally hang, finding only empty air. 3 years on the force ends this afternoon with paperwork instead of fanfare. Elena watches realization dawn behind Thompson's eyes. The recorder, the file, the chief's silent presence. Each piece clicks into place with terrible clarity. He swallows hard, looking suddenly younger than his 35 years. The arrogance from the traffic stop has evaporated, leaving only the shaky awareness of consequences. Mendoza finally speaks, voice quiet but carrying. Your badge and sidearm. Now. No preamble, no drawn-out interrogation. Just the inevitable outcome of recorded misconduct in an era where secrets rarely stay buried. Thompson reaches for his badge with unsteady hands. The gold-plated shield catches afternoon light as he places it on the desk. Someone will log it into evidence along with the recording. Case closed in one sense, just beginning in another. His eyes dart to the recorder once more before he turns toward the door, steps heavy with the knowledge that some mistakes can't be union grievanced away. The precinct lobby hums with midday activity, citizens filling out forms, officers shuffling. Paperwork, the occasional shouted question over the front desk. Marcus Johnson stands at the complaint kiosk, his large hands carefully pressing each letter on the touchscreen. His basketball jersey stretches tight across broad shoulders, the orange fabric drawing glances from bored officers waiting by the coffee station. Thompson spots him first from the sergeant's office doorway. The officer's posture changes instantly, shoulders squaring, chin lifting. He weaves through the crowd with the precision of someone who's done this dance before. Research shows 68% of complaint-related intimidation happens in these exact, public but just private enough spaces where cameras only catch partial angles. Help you with something? Thompson plants himself a foot inside Marcus's personal space. The words sound helpful if you ignore the clenched jaw. Marcus doesn't look up from the screen. Almost done here, officer. His voice stays level, but his thumb hovers over the submit button, the universal tell of someone reconsidering whether friction with police is worth it. Thompson's hand drifts toward the kiosk edge, blunt fingers tapping the plastic casing. You sure about that? His tone drops into that calibrated register officers use when threatening, without technically threatening. A 2020 study identified this specific vocal pattern, questions phrased as warnings, in 91% of documented complaint interference cases. Marcus finally turns, standing his full 6'5" height. The move puts him eye level with Thompson despite the officer's raised step on the kiosk platform. Yeah, I'm sure. No deference, no backing down, just calm assertion that throws Thompson, slightly. This civilian isn't following the usual script. The officer's face darkens. His fingers curl slightly as if imagining a nightstick. Might want to think twice before filing false paperwork. The implication hangs between them. Most citizens would buckle here. Marcus exhales through his nose and reaches for his phone instead. Classic millennial response. Document. Don't escalate. Thompson misreads the motion as aggression and grabs Marcus's wrist. Bad move. Marcus's military training kicks in before his conscious thought. His arm twists automatically, breaking the grip without force. Pure muscle memory from Kandahar patrols where sudden grabs meant trouble. Thompson stumbles off balance, eyes widening at the fluid countermove. The lobby's ambient noise cuts out around them as nearby officers tense. Officer Thompson. Chief Mendoza's voice slices through the sudden stillness from 3 feet away. No one noticed him approach, a trick he mastered walking El Paso's gang territories. His uniform displays rank clearly now, gold badge catching fluorescent light. Thompson pales. The calculus flashes across his face. Years of union protections evaporating in the cold reality of public misconduct witnessed by command staff. Studies on police authority dynamics show an interesting phenomenon. An officer, who will argue with supervisors in private, nearly always folds when corrected publicly. Thompson's shoulders slump incrementally. His hands drift back to his belt, the universal cop posture of forced compliance. Mendoza doesn't raise his voice. He doesn't need to. The precinct's acoustic tiles carry his quiet words clearly. Go wait an IA, now. 3 sentences that end careers. No room for debate in that tone. Thompson hesitates, a fatal mistake. Mendoza's eyes narrow. The shift is small but seismic. Suddenly it's not just about a bully cop intimidating a citizen. It's about a chief establishing absolute authority on his first week. Every patrol officer watching understands. This administration won't brush misconduct under the rug. Thompson finally moves toward the interior doors with the stiff gait of a man walking to his own firing squad. The lobby exhales collectively. Marcus watches him go, then turns back to the kiosk. His thumb hovers over the reset button. Old habits of avoiding police attention die hard. Finish your report. Mendoza nudges the touchscreen closer. The simple gesture speaks volumes. No more intimidation. No more bending the rules. Just citizens filing complaints without fear. Marcus hesitates. The unwritten rules of policing suggest this moment should breed hostility. Black man versus cop. Instead, he finds Mendoza watching him with the measuring look of one professional assessing another. Marines? The chief asks, noting the telltale ink peeking beneath Marcus's sleeve. 2 tours. Mendoza nods slowly, then taps his own wrist where similar ink likely hides beneath starched white cotton. The silent veteran-to-veteran acknowledgement changes the equation entirely. Marcus turns back to the screen and completes the complaint form in 37 seconds flat. Exactly how long it takes Thompson to disappear through the IA office door. The precinct's front doors slide open a minute later, admitting a burst of midday sun and 3 more citizens with paperwork requests. Business as usual resumes. Except now the woman at the next kiosk no longer hesitates before typing racial profiling as her complaint category. The elderly man behind her stands, a little straighter when approaching the desk. Mendoza watches this subtle shift while pretending to review a clipboard. The sociology texts call it broken windows theory, small signals creating larger cultural change. Inside the precinct, the real work begins. Down the hall, Thompson sits alone in an interrogation room, studying his reflection in the two-way mirror, a man realizing his old playbook just became obsolete. The complaint printer whirs to life, spitting out Marcus's form with crisp efficiency. No one intercepts it this time. The sheet lands neatly in the pending review tray where civilian grievances belong. No stamps, no dismissals, just due process unfolding exactly as designed. Uniformed officers in the break room sip bad coffee a little more carefully now. Thompson's very public dressing down circulates through the precinct via text alerts and hushed locker room whispers. The smart ones adjust their body cameras, properly centered now. The resentful few shoot glances at Mendoza through glass partitions. Marcus pockets his complaint receipt, the paper crisp against his fingertips. He pauses at the exit, turning back for one last look at the chief now conferring with the desk. "Sergeant." The lobby cameras capture this moment perfectly. Black civilian and Mexican police leader sharing a nod of mutual respect across institutional divides, footage that will later play in sensitivity training seminars citywide. Outside, traffic whooshes past the precinct doors, the ordinary sounds of a city functioning. But something fundamental has shifted inside those walls, not with grand speeches or policy overhauls. Just one officer ordered to stand down, and every cop who witnessed it understanding the rules have changed. The revolving doors spin as Marcus steps into sunlight. Behind him, the complaint kiosk pings softly. Another citizen, beginning to type. The system works exactly as intended when someone finally decides to work the system properly. The municipal courtroom fell silent as Daniel Ramirez raised his right hand. The judge's words echoed off marble walls that had never witnessed this before, the swearing in of the city's first Mexican-American police chief. His wife held the Bible. His daughter clutched a small flag. The badge they pinned to his uniform carried the weight of 127 years of department history. Reporters' cameras flashed in rhythm as Daniel adjusted the microphone. The glare reflected off the glass cases displaying medals from decades past, all awarded to men who didn't look like him. He surveyed the crowd. Command staff in dress blues fidgeted in the front rows, while community organizers stood shoulder to shoulder at the back. Every face held the same unspoken question. Was this just a photo op, or the start of something real? Daniel's first words as chief weren't about progress or unity. He quoted the department's use of force policy by section number. Then he cited the latest internal affairs case log. The statistics landed like bricks. Disproportionate stops, uneven discipline, complaint backlogs. When he pulled Thompson's personnel file from his breast pocket, 2 captains walked out. The speech lasted 9 minutes. He spent 7 detailing new accountability measures, public complaint dashboards, reassigned review boards, body camera audits. Only at the end did his voice soften. "My father taught me that justice wears no face," he said, fingers brushing the scar above his eyebrow, a childhood injury from a botched immigration raid. "Starting today, neither will this badge." As the applause built, Daniel's gaze locked onto Thompson in the third row. The officer's uniform looked freshly pressed, but his posture screamed discomfort. Their silent exchange lasted 3 seconds, just long enough for the new chief to nod once before turning to accept the mayor's handshake. Outside, protesters and supporters mingled on the courthouse steps. An elderly Latina pressed a rosary into Daniel's palm. A rookie cop asked for a selfie. But the most telling moment came when the parking attendant, a black man who'd filed 3 complaints against Thompson, saluted as the chief's car pulled away. Back at headquarters, the changes started before Daniel's nameplate was installed. Workers removed the Officer of the Month display after someone pointed out all 36 photos showed white men. The break room TV, permanently tuned to conservative talk radio, now played the local Spanish news channel. Down in records, Elena Rodriguez was already boxing up case files for the new Transparency Task Force. The shift commander's log that night noted something unusual. 7 officers called in sick. But the midnight patrol roster showed 3 squad cars parked outside predominantly Latino neighborhoods, 2 more than usual. At 6:09 a.m., Daniel's first official email as chief landed in every department inbox. The subject line, "Today's roll call agenda." The attachments included Thompson's suspension order and a blank cultural competency quiz. By lunchtime, the police union lawyer was pacing outside Daniel's office. Inside, the chief was reviewing footage from yesterday's lobby confrontation, not the heated exchange with Thompson, but the moment after. The video showed a black teenager watching the entire scene, then hesitantly approaching the front desk with a stolen bike report. For the first time in months, someone had stayed to file paperwork instead of walking away. Daniel saved the clip to his desktop, labeled it "Baseline," and reached for the next case file. The brass nameplate on his desk still hadn't arrived, but the patrol officers passing his open door had already adopted a new habit. They no longer called him sir or boss. The ones who meant it said chief. The others didn't speak at all. In the records room, Elena pulled another drawer from the metal cabinet. Her gloves left streaks in the dust on Thompson's early evaluation files. The paper trail began with minor reprimands, unprofessional language, unnecessary escalation. By the 3rd year, the warnings grew serious. Falsified reports, coerced, confessions. Each document bore the same 2 initials in the review box, DR. Deputy Chief Raymond, now retired, had signed them all. At the bottom of the stack, Elena found what she needed. A memo from Internal Affairs marked confidential, dated 8 months before Daniel's appointment. It detailed a whistleblower's claim about Raymond's special roster, a list of officers deemed unfireable. The last line read, "Recommend review by next chief." She photographed the page just as footsteps echoed in the hallway. The new chief's office lights burned until 1:17 a.m. Daniel sat with the door cracked open, listening to the precinct's nighttime sounds. Keyboards tapping, radios crackling, the occasional burst of laughter. On his screen, an organizational chart with 12 names circled in red. Tomorrow he'd request their personnel files. Tonight, he watched the security feed from the lobby, where 3 teenagers loitered near the coffee machine. After 20 minutes, one approached the desk. He couldn't hear the words, but he saw the rookie officer actually smile before handing the kid an application form. Daniel saved the timestamp in his notes. Somewhere in the building, Thompson's empty locker still held his duty belt. The combination lock hung open. Thompson's knuckles rapped twice on the chief's office door, softer than you'd expect from a man with his record. The resignation letter in his breast pocket makes a faint crinkling sound when he shifts his weight. 7 months ago, he wouldn't have bothered knocking. Daniel looks up from paperwork without surprise. He'd scheduled this meeting after reviewing the whistleblower files Elena found. Thompson's shadow stretches across the linoleum floor, head bowed like someone already defeated. Research shows 84% of officers facing termination try this move first, the honorable resignation gambit. It preserves pensions and lets departments avoid messy hearings. The chair creaks when Thompson sits. His uniform, still pressed despite suspension, looks strange without the duty belt. No gun, no cuffs, just empty loops where tools of authority once hung. His fingers twitch toward the missing weight. "I've been thinking about that traffic stop," Thompson starts. His voice sounds oddly formal, like he rehearsed this in the mirror. "Things got out of hand." Understatement of the year. The body, cam footage shows him violating 4 procedures before Daniel even revealed his badge. Daniel leans back, waiting. He's studied enough interrogation tapes to recognize when someone's circling the real confession. The clock ticks 8 seconds before Thompson caves. "Here." He slides the envelope across the desk. The paper scrapes loud in the quiet office. Resignation letters always follow the same arc. Regret, acceptance of responsibility, vague promises to do better elsewhere. Thompson's is no different except for the sweat smudge near his signature. Most chiefs would take the deal. The city saves on lawsuits. The union stays pacified. Department metrics improve when problem officers leave voluntarily instead of getting fired. Daniel turns the envelope over without opening it. His thumb finds the uneven seal where Thompson hesitated before licking it shut. "I'm denying this." Thompson's head jerks up. His pupils dilate. Classic fight-or-flight response. Officers expect two outcomes when they resign: acceptance or negotiation. Flat rejection breaks the script. A 2021 Stanford study found only 3% of police leaders refuse resignations from problematic officers, usually when criminal charges loom. Daniel pushes the envelope back. His voice stays calm but carries finality. "You don't get to walk away from 7 years of misconduct." The phrasing lands like a gavel strike. Thompson's neck flushes red beneath his collar. His fingers curl into loose fists, then relax. Micro-expressions, telegraphing the moment he realizes this isn't about saving face anymore. The chief opens a folder. Inside, 37 pages of complaints, but only 2 are highlighted. "Maria Gutierrez, 2019. You told her son you'd find him if she didn't drop the excessive force claim." He flips a page. "Tyrone Williams, last month. You ran his plates after he filed that profiling complaint." Thompson's breathing hitches. Those incidents never made his official record. Daniel taps the 3rd page, an email chain exposing how Thompson's union rep buried the Gutierrez complaint. "I want names. Who helped you squash these?" His tone leaves no ambiguity. This isn't an exit interview. It's an audition for leniency. Restorative justice models suggest true reform requires confrontation with victims, not just paperwork. Daniel slides a list across the desk. Contact information for every complainant in Thompson's file. In Seattle, officers who completed reconciliation programs showed 60% lower recidivism than those who simply resigned. Thompson stares at the names. His jaw works like he's chewing bitter medicine. The grandfather clock in the corner marks 38 seconds of silence before he croaks. "What happens if I say no?" Daniel doesn't blink. "Then IA forwards everything to the DA's office tomorrow." The implied felonies hang between them: witness intimidation, unlawful database searches. Thompson's left eye twitches. He's done the math. 3 years. Until full pension versus possible jail time. The envelope crinkles again when Thompson picks it up. He tears it slowly down the middle, then again crosswise. The scraps flutter into the wastebasket like surrender flags. Outside, 2 patrol officers laugh near the coffee machine, oblivious to the career ending 20 feet away. Daniel stands, signaling the meeting's over. His final instruction comes crisply. "Report to the training center at 800 Monday. You're their first volunteer for the new community reconciliation program." The initiative pairs problem officers with civilians they've wronged. No lawyers, no union reps, just raw accountability. Thompson's shoes scuff the floor as he turns to leave. The door clicks shut behind him with unsettling finality. Through the window blinds, Daniel watches. Him pause in the hallway, back rigid, hands flexing at his sides. A man realizing his life's next chapter involves sitting across from people he bullied and hearing, in detail, how it felt. Down in records, Elena stamps Thompson's file with a new status: pending remediation. The heavy metal drawer screeches when she shoves it back into the cabinet. Upstairs, the patrol briefing begins without Thompson's usual seat saved near the sergeant. New officers glance at the empty chair, then quickly away. No one comments, but the message registers. Some traditions won't continue under this administration. Daniel waits until Thompson's silhouette disappears from the parking lot before opening his bottom drawer. Inside sits a dated personnel file: Miguel Ramirez, his father, arrested in 1987 for resisting during an immigration check. The charge was dropped, but the broken wrist never healed right. Some payback fantasies fade with time. Others morph into policies that force reconciliation instead of retribution. He tucks the file away just as his computer pings. The preliminary report on Sergeant Lodge's case management appears on screen. 37 officers flagged for protective waivers. 6 union reps implicated in evidence tampering. An entire accountability system rigged to fail. Outside, Dusk settles over the precinct lot. Thompson's truck remains parked by the far fence, too many reporters out front for a discreet exit. He sits gripping the wheel, staring at the training center schedule on his phone. Monday's first session, confronting racial bias. His reflection in the dark windshield shows a man finally comprehending the gravity of undoing 34 years of bad habits. Daniel's phone lights up with Elena's text. He sign? 3 letters convey volumes about institutional inertia. The chief types one character in reply, no. The period at the end weighs a ton. Somewhere across town, Maria Gutierrez's doorbell rings. A department liaison hands her pamphlets about the reconciliation program. Her eyes widen at the cover photo, Thompson in uniform looking chastened. 7 blocks away, Tyrone Williams receives the same visit. Both listen skeptically before agreeing to consider meeting their former antagonist. Dyer, precinct's back door creaks open after hours. Thompson slinks through the employee lot, head down against the drizzling rain. His posture says beaten man. His clenched fists whisper unfinished business. Security cameras capture every step, storing the footage in servers flagged for DA review. Daniel watches the feed from home, fingers steepled under his chin. His daughter's homework sprawls across the kitchen table, a civics essay about justice systems. She glances up when he sighs. Problems at work? He shakes his head, gaze still locked on Thompson's retreating figure. Just watching the first domino fall. The resignation scraps remain in his office trash. Tomorrow cleaners will empty it without noticing one torn envelope among many. No fanfare, no dramatic finish, just an officer finally facing consequences after years of dodging them, and a chief who refused the easy way out. At the station, the night shift sergeant pins a new memo to every locker. Mandatory cultural competency training starts next week. The paper rustles when Thompson's locker door swings open, still empty except for a spare uniform. His combination lock dangles unused, digits frozen on 12:31 times up. Elena's desk lamp casts a yellow cone over the stack of files she shouldn't have accessed. The personnel records lack official request forms, retrieved through a back door. Log in the IT department doesn't audit. Page 12 reveals the first red flag, a handwritten note from former Deputy Chief Raymond beside Thompson's 2017 evaluation. Union says hands off. The same phrase appears on 6 other disciplinary reports over the years. She cross-references the dates with union grievance logs. Each complaint dismissal matches an election cycle. Thompson's uncle chaired the police union's political action committee for a decade. His successor still takes hunting trips with city council members who approve the department's budget. The connections map out like a conspiracy board, except this isn't theory, it's policy. National studies show police unions win 78% of disciplinary appeals through arbitration clauses. Elena finds proof in Thompson's file, 3 sustained complaints overturned after hearings with the same arbitrator. The man's signature loops identically every time. His daughter works in the mayor's office. The real evidence hides in the addendums. Body cam footage from a 2020 stop shows Thompson planting a baggie in a Latino teenager's backpack. The video was flagged for review, then mysteriously reclassified as training material. The digital trail dead ends at Sergeant Lodge's login credentials. Lodge chaired the union's defense fund when Thompson joined. Down the hall, Daniel reviews the chain of command's complicity. Promotion records show Raymond fast-tracked Thompson past better qualified candidates. 8 procedural waivers cleared his path to field training officer, a role that let him shape rookies. Internal emails reveal commanders worrying about optics. Whenever Thompson's name came up, never consequences. The system operated with clinical efficiency. Complaints got routed to union-friendly investigators. Evidence disappeared from locked rooms. Whistleblowers found themselves reassigned to midnight patrols. Daniel's predecessor approved it all with a rubber stamp and a wink. The corruption wasn't loud or dramatic. It was bureaucratic. Elena uncovers the paper trail on Lodge next. His desktop calendar shows 12 lunches with the district attorney's office last year, all scheduled before key evidence hearings. Phone logs reveal 92 calls to council member offices during Thompson's IA investigations. The numbers don't lie. This wasn't one bad cop. It was an ecosystem. Daniel slides a transparency report across his desk. The document outlines new protocols, independent complaint review boards, randomized case assignments, public access to disciplinary records. Each measure targets a specific loophole the old guard exploited. The pages tremble slightly in his grip. Reforms like these get proposed all the time. They rarely survive union negotiations. At dawn, Elena watches Lodge arrive through the precinct's back door. His usual confidence wavers when he spots the internal affairs team waiting by his desk. They don't handcuff him. This isn't that kind of reckoning. Just a formal request for his passwords and keycards. The silent message transmits instantly through the bullpen. Protection expires today. Lodge's personnel file tells its own story. 32 years on the force. 19 decorated as union rep. His jacket contains 0 complaints despite supervising Thompson's worst years. The math doesn't add up unless you factor in institutional armor, the kind that stops accountability bullets before they pierce the blue line. Daniel schedules his announcement for 3 p.m., shift change, maximum witnesses. He practices the wording while watching the parking lot fill with news vans. Effective immediately, all disciplinary cases will route through civil oversight committees. The phrasing sounds bland, but the subtext screams revolution. Union bosses text furiously in the back row. The real power play drops 3 minutes into the press conference. Daniel names Elena as the new integrity officer, reporting directly to his office. No union veto. Her first act, subpoenaing the arbitrator's financial records. The second, unsealing every sustained complaint from the past decade. Protesters outside chant about justice. Reporters demand specifics. Daniel lets them buzz while he signs the 11th executive order of the day, a mandate requiring all command staff to retake ethics certification. Across town, Thompson stares at his training manual, realizing his patronage network just evaporated. Elena stays late cataloging evidence. The paper cuts on her fingers sting each time she turns a page. Somewhere in these files lies the blueprint for next month's reforms. Somewhere in the building, Lodge cleans out his desk under IA supervision. His retirement papers came through, suspiciously fast. The moon shines through the precinct's reinforced windows as Daniel reviews Elena's findings. The desk lamp flickers when he plugs in an external drive. Decades of misconduct reports the union buried. Tomorrow, his team will start the notifications. Every victim who got stonewalled will receive a personal apology and case review notice. Thompson's rehabilitation trainer calls with updates. The officer completed his first community meeting without incident. Progress reports claim he showed genuine remorse when facing the family from his wrongful stop. Daniel listens politely but keeps checking the dashboard tracking complaint resolutions. Real change gets measured in reopened cases, not tearful apologies. The midnight patrol shift files out quietly, cognizant of the cameras watching everything now. Their radios no longer squawk with inside jokes about complainants. The locker room gossip stays professional. Small signs, but seismic. Systems don't reform overnight. They bend incrementally under sustained pressure. Daniel finally leaves at 2:17 a.m. The parking lot's lone security light buzzes overhead. His shadow stretches long across the asphalt, a silhouette that never would have been allowed here before tonight. The reforms will face lawsuits, the union will counterattack, but the first brick is dislodged. At his doorstep, he finds a handwritten note from Maria Gutierrez, Thompson's first reconciliation participant. Her shaky cursive fills half a page thanking him for the chance to speak her truth. The ink smudges near the end where tears fell. Not forgiveness, not yet. Just acknowledgement that someone finally listened. Daniel tucks the letter beside his father's old arrest record, 2 pieces of paper representing generations of injustice. The system failed them both. The difference is, this time it won't get the last word. The gas station lights burn too bright for 2 a.m., bleaching the cracked pavement white. 12-year-old Daniel Ramirez pressed his palm against the passenger window, watching his father's silhouette at the pump. Miguel's work shirt clung to his shoulders despite the desert night chill. Third shift at the packing plant kept his clothes perpetually damp. The nozzle clicked off. 2 squad cars rolled in without sirens. Daniel's finger left a smudge on the glass as he tracked the officer's approach. Even then, he noticed how their hands drifted toward their belts when his father turned. Research from the Childhood Trauma Initiative would later confirm what Daniel intuited that night. Children recall abusive police encounters with 94% accuracy even decades later. "Papi?" His voice cracked the word. His mother's hand clamped over his wrist. Outside, Miguel's ID hit the pavement when he reached for his wallet too fast. The taller officer kicked it aside. Their voices stayed low, but Daniel read his father's, spine stiffening at whatever they'd said. Miguel started gesturing toward the car where his family sat, a universal plea for witnesses. The shorter cop yanked his arm behind his back. Fracture reports from that era showed distal radius breaks accounted for 73% of excessive force injuries among Latino men. Miguel's wrist snapped audibly. Daniel would hear that sound in every interrogation room he ever entered as an officer. Daniel's mother choked back a sob, but didn't move. Census data from that year lists 34 similar incidents within a 5-mile radius. None resulted in disciplinary action. The officers shoved Miguel face first onto the hood. His belt buckle screeched against the metal. Later, when Daniel reviewed his first use of force report as a rookie cop, he'd recognized the exact improper restraint technique they used, an outdated arm lock prohibited by most departments. Daniel's shoes scuffed the vinyl seat as he climbed over his mother. The door handle resisted his small hands. By the time he got it open, the taller officer had his boot on Miguel's neck. Studies on generational trauma identify such moments with clinical precision, formative exposures to injustice that alter neural pathways in developing brains. "Please, my son." Miguel's voice strangled under the pressure. The cop glanced at Daniel without lifting his foot. His sunglasses reflected the buzzing overhead lights, turning his eyes into twin moons. Body camera footage from 200 similar arrests shows officers maintaining composure 89% longer when children are present. This one took 3 additional seconds before stepping back. They left without charges, without explanation. Just a crumpled receipt tossed at Miguel's feet listing the probable cause as suspected intoxication, despite 0 alcohol involvement. The EPA report from that quarter shows the station's security cameras conveniently malfunctioned for maintenance that night. Miguel's wrist never healed properly. Daniel would watch him wince daily while lifting produce crates, the bones knitting, at a crooked angle. Workplace injury logs from the packing plant show 14 subsequent incidents attributed to employee clumsiness before Miguel got fired. 18 years later, Daniel stands at his academy graduation, holding that same receipt in his dress blues pocket. The thermal ink has faded, but the officer's badge number remains legible, 714. He'd tracked the man's career through disciplinary reports, promoted twice despite 4 substantiated brutality complaints, now commanding the same precinct where Daniel received his first assignment. Psychologists call this phenomenon trauma channeling, when victims of systemic abuse either replicate or reform the systems that harmed them. Daniel's personnel file shows 17 transfer requests to internal affairs during his first 5 years on patrol, each denied by supervisors who noted his excessive interest in other officers' conduct. The night before his chief interview, Daniel drives to that same gas station. It's a condo development now. He sits in his unmarked car watching affluent couples walk their dogs past the invisible scar where his father's blood dotted the concrete. Body cam studies would later validate what he understood instinctively that night. Perspective shifts. When you've been on both sides of the flashing lights. At his swearing-in ceremony, Daniel keeps Miguel's healed but crooked wrist in frame during the official photo. The image circulates through department chat groups within hours, a silent challenge to every officer who still thinks excessive force disappears with the morning shift change. Reform isn't theoretical for him. It's the 23 minutes he spent watching his father gasp under a uniformed knee, the sound of bone giving way, the way his mother's fingers dug into his shoulder to keep him from running into the crossfire. When Elena asks why he's reopening 30-year-old misconduct cases, Daniel doesn't cite policy or statistics. He opens his desk drawer where that old gas station receipt lives beside his badge. The thermal paper has grown brittle, but the ink still spells out the lesson that shaped his career. Unchecked power damages everything it touches. The precinct locker room hums with speculation about the chief's motives. They whisper about political ambitions or departmental legacy. None guess the truth, that every reform memo he signs carries the faint smell of gasoline and the phantom ache of a wrist that never healed straight. Miguel visits headquarters exactly once during Daniel's tenure. Officers stiffen as he passes, though few recognize the aging janitor with the crooked wrist as the chief's father. He stops at the lobby memorial for officers killed in the line of duty, runs his fingers over the engraved names without comment. Daniel watches from his office window. Statistics say over 60% of use-of-force incidents go unreported in minority communities. The real number imprinted on his memory is 1. The single incident report that should have been filed for a gas station on a hot summer night. When Thompson finally completes his mandatory bias training, Daniel makes sure the curriculum includes that statistic, not as a lecture point, as a test question asking recruits to calculate how many unreported incidents occur annually in their patrol areas. The math forces them to confront what he's known since childhood. Behind every percentage point are people like Miguel. The gas station's gone, but the receipts remain, in desks, in memories. In the way Daniel's hand still curls into a fist when he reviews body cam footage of unnecessary takedowns. The system counted on victims forgetting. He remembers. The first reform memo lands on departmental desktops at 6:03 a.m., too early for union reps to block its distribution. Daniel's signature cuts through 7 layers of bureaucracy to mandate weekly body cam audits. No more supervisors reviewing their own officers' footage. The new system assigns cross-precinct evaluators randomly, like jury duty. Research from the National Police Foundation shows this reduces bias dismissals by 58%. 17 veteran sergeants request emergency leave that morning. Their paperwork cites stress. The roster software automatically flags their patterns. Identical symptoms every time accountability measures tighten. Elena's team converts the old evidence closet into a transparency office. Glass walls replace steel doors. Surveillance feeds now stream to civilian review boards in real time. A laminated sign on the refrigerator reads, "No case left closed." Department slang for buried complaints getting exhumed. Resistance comes as expected but takes subtle forms. The locker room hot water mysteriously stops working during night shifts. Keyboards for the public complaint kiosks disappear. Daniel finds his cruiser tires slashed twice in 3 weeks. He files reports for each incident, knowing the paper trail matters more than the petty sabotage. The real change surfaces in unexpected places. Beat officers start wearing name tags they'd previously lost. A patrol cop buys coffee for a homeless man he'd previously harassed. Small gestures, but Elena tracks them in her ledger. 43 voluntary policy adoptions within 2 weeks. Daniel institutes double-blind complaint processing. Officers receive case numbers instead of names. Researchers from Stanford confirm this reduces racial bias in resolutions by 37%. The union challenges it anyway. The grievance lasts 4 minutes in court before getting dismissed. Training sessions now include civilian instructors, people who've experienced police violence firsthand. Miguel Ramirez teaches the first workshop. His crooked wrist makes a better teaching aid than any PowerPoint. Officers fidget when he passes. Around his gas station receipt from 1987, the Budget Committee balks at Daniel's proposal to triple IA staffing. He releases the math publicly. Every sustained complaint costs taxpayers $42,000 in legal fees. Preventative oversight comes cheaper. The council approves his request with no debate. Old policies die hard, though. 2 narcotics detectives get caught running unauthorized background checks on complaint filers. Their disciplinary hearing lasts 8 minutes. They walk out stripped of badges but keep their pensions, a compromise that leaves both sides dissatisfied. Perfect justice remains. Theoretical patrol officers develop new tells. Their hands hover further from their belts during minority encounters. They articulate reasonable suspicion more clearly on body cam footage. Researchers call this the observer effect. Behavior changes when people know they're being watched. The real test comes on 3rd Street. A rookie cop stops a Latino teen for jaywalking. The kid tenses, expecting the usual drill. Instead, the officer says, "Just warn you, man, that intersection's got blind curves." No ticket, no pat down. The moment gets captured on a bus stop surveillance camera neither knew was working. Complaint numbers spike initially, not because misconduct increases, but because trust does. A UCLA study found communities report 218% more concerns when they believe systems will respond. Elena's team works weekends processing the backlog. The shift commander's log shows curious patterns. Veteran cops suddenly volunteering for community outreach. Detectives requesting cultural competency training. The changes look organic until you notice the dates, all post-Thompson's suspension. Nothing motivates like watching consequences land. Daniel installs suggestion boxes in every precinct. Most contain thoughtful policy ideas. One holds a single bullet, the oldest silencing tactic in policing. He displays it in his office beside Miguel's receipt. Two sides of the same coin. New officers adapt fastest. They've never known the old ways. Their reports show 63% fewer furtive movements and suspicious behaviors, coded language that used to justify questionable stops. The Academy revamps its scenario training to emphasize de-escalation over command presence. The old guard still congregates in the parking garage smoke pit. Their laughter sounds forced these days. 8 have put in retirement papers. 3 more request transfers to quieter districts. Institutional memory fades fast when accountability arrives. Miguel visits headquarters again, this time to fix a leaky faucet in the transparency office. Officers who once ignored him now nod in passing. Small gestures, but his wrist doesn't ache as much afterward. The water runs clear. No more mineral buildup from decades of neglect. Daniel reviews the latest complaint stats silently. Numbers only say so much. The real proof comes at roll call when rookies debate Fourth Amendment nuances without prompting. Or when patrol sergeants remind their teams, remember that gas station footage before shifts. Cultural change isn't an event. It's the accumulation of daily choices. The precinct's front doors stay unlocked later now. Community groups book meeting rooms after hours. A mural goes up where the Officer of the Month photos hung. Local kids painted it under Miguel's supervision. The design shows badge numbers without faces, reminding everyone who truly serves whom. Thompson's empty locker remains untouched. A cautionary monument. New recruits glance at it while lacing their boots. The combination lock still dangles open, digits frozen on his last day. No one has dared to claim the space. Some vacancies speak louder than occupants ever could. Elena's transparency reports grow thicker each week. The early controversies gave way to mundane documentation, policies working as intended, bureaucracy at its least sexy and most effective. She leaves one copy on Daniel's desk every Friday. He always checks page 14 first, the list of reopened cases. The numbers still bother him at night. 30 years of unchecked power can't vanish in months. But the gas station where Miguel got hurt is a daycare center now. Kids laugh where cops once loomed. Progress traces crooked lines, but it moves. Daniel keeps his father's old arrest record in his top drawer. The paper grows brittle, but the lesson remains. Systems don't fail by accident. They require active dismantling. His nightly walks through the precinct confirm the work has begun. The locker room whiteboard used to display offensive jokes. Now it lists policy reminders in neat print. Someone has added a post-it near the bottom. We are what we tolerate. The handwriting matches Elena's case notes. Down in the garage, mechanics service the patrol cars. They find fewer hidden microphones these days, fewer disabled cameras. The vehicles almost look like what they're supposed to be, public servants' transports, not rolling surveillance stations. Midnight shift gathers for roll call. The sergeant doesn't need to remind them about body cams anymore. The new normal, set silently like concrete, unremarkable until you recall how things used to be. Daniel watches from the doorway, coffee cooling in his hand. Paperwork piles up on his desk. Policy drafts, budget requests, the mundane machinery of reform. Outside, his window dawn breaks over the precinct parking lot. Another shift change, another day of slow, unglamorous progress. Miguel's receipt sits framed beside the phone. The thermal ink has almost faded completely. Daniel doesn't need to read it anymore. The numbers live in his bones now. One gas station, one broken wrist, one lifetime of working to ensure no other kid has to sit in that car again. The cultural shift won't complete itself, but the wheels, once stuck fast, now turn with less resistance. Thompson shows up for his first mandated bias training session 15 minutes late, the chair scraping loudly as he takes a seat in the back row. His posture stays rigid through the first hour, arms crossed, jaw set. But when the facilitator plays body cam footage of his own traffic stop with Chief Ramirez, his fingers dig into his elbows. The video shows what he refused to see before, the way his tone shifted when he recognized the Spanish surname on the license, how his hand hovered near his weapon without cause. The training manual stays closed in front of him until the third session, when a role-playing exercise forces him to stand in the shoes of a Latino driver. Thompson stumbles through the scenario at first, defaulting to clipped commands. Then something cracks. His voice drops when the trainer playing the driver mentions working 2 jobs to pay the citation. He doesn't write the ticket. Studies show most officers complete bias training without changing behaviors. The lessons bounce off like stray rounds off Kevlar. But Ramirez's reforms include follow-ups, monthly evaluations, ride-alongs with diverse partners, and a requirement to log every civilian interaction. Thompson's notebook fills with observations he'd previously ignored. A mother's frayed sleeve where she'd been tugging at it nervously, the way a teenager's bravado evaporated when the handcuffs came out. 6 weeks in, the shift commander assigns Thompson to mentor a new recruit, fresh from the academy. The rookie asks why they're patrolling a predominantly immigrant neighborhood at a walking pace instead of running plate checks. Thompson hesitates, then tells him about the abuela who baked pan dulce for the unit after they helped find her missing grandson. How trust takes years to build and seconds to destroy. The change isn't linear. Old habits resurface when a call comes in about a suspected gang member matching a vague description. Thompson's foot is already on the gas before he catches himself, slows down and radios for more details first. Later he reviews the encounter with his training officer, dissecting the moment his pulse spiked despite no visible threat. Ramirez monitors progress through quarterly reviews, not just complaints. Thompson's file shows a 72% drop in discretionary stops since training began with 0 use-of-force incidents. When Internal Affairs interviews the rookie he mentors, the kid describes how Thompson now pauses 3 seconds longer before reaching for his flashlight during nighttime stops, a buffer against snap judgments. The real test comes during a community meeting in the precinct's least trusting district. A woman stands to recount being profiled years earlier by an officer matching Thompson's description. He could hide behind procedural denials. Instead, he asks her to finish her story, then admits the department failed her. The room stays tense, but a teenager in the back row stops slouching. Back at the station, Thompson rewrites the mentoring manual section on pedestrian stops. He adds a line about checking your own breathing before approaching. If it's ragged, so is your decision-making. The document goes to press with his name in the contributors list, 1 line below Ramirez's. At the next bias training, Thompson doesn't take the back row. He sits up front, nodding when the facilitator mentions how accountability requires dismantling systems, not just disciplining individuals. After class, a sergeant from another precinct asks if the sessions are worth his time. Thompson hands him his dog-eared training manual, sticky notes bristling from the pages. "Start with Chapter 4, he says. "It'll piss you off. That's the point." The rookie he mentors makes his first unlawful stop 2 months later, reacting to a driver's nervousness as suspicion. Thompson doesn't cover for him. They spend the next shift reviewing de-escalation protocols, with Thompson playing the agitated civilian. He lets the kid sweat through 5 failed attempts before showing how dropping his own voice first makes space for calm. Ramirez watches from his office window as Thompson demonstrates proper flashlight technique to 3 rookies. In the parking lot, beam angled down, never in eyes, always with a verbal warning first. The motions are mechanical, but the intention behind them is new. Change doesn't travel in straight lines, but it does move. The precinct's community liaison office used to collect dust between photo ops. Now the chairs fill every Thursday night with residents clutching notebooks. An elderly Vietnamese grandmother sits beside a black college student, both tracking Chief Ramirez with equal focus. Trust metrics compiled by Rutgers University show these meetings correlate with a 52% drop in neighborhood calls about suspicious persons, the vague designation that once masked racial profiling. Pastor Wilkins from Calvary Baptist attends, despite his congregation's skepticism. His church parking lot doubled as a drug bust staging area 3 years running. Now he watches officers eat potluck casseroles with parishioners between patrols. The shift feels seismic until you notice his fingers still tapping rhythmically against his Bible during roll calls. Old suspicions linger like phantom limb pain. Complaint filings spike paradoxically as outreach expands. Boston College's policing project identified this pattern in 7 other reform cities, increased reporting signals growing faith in accountability systems. The spike peaks when Ramirez personally answers a 3 a.m. call about officers hassling skateboarders. Body cam footage shows him listening for 12 uninterrupted minutes before speaking. Local businesses test the changes cautiously. The bodega, on 7th, stops paying its monthly protection fee to avoid police harassment. When patrols increase rather than retaliate, the owner sends tamales to the precinct. Gang intervention workers note decreased recruitment in zones where beat cops now know kids by name instead of gang affiliation. The real shift surfaces in mundane interactions. A Latina mother pauses her sidewalk scolding of twin boys to nod at passing officers, no longer hustling children indoors at the first sight of uniforms. The playground's metal slide bears scratch marks where someone removed the police area, no trespassing sign haunting the jungle gym since a 2015 shooting. Resistance persists in expected quarters. The patrol officers' union newsletter decries social work policing for 3 straight editions. Anonymous flyers appear in break rooms claiming complaint reforms endanger officer safety. The grumbling loses steam when quarterly data shows assaults on police actually dropped 14%, alongside increased community cooperation. Maria Gutierrez, Thompson's first reconciliation participant, now leads civilian review board trainings. Her presentation includes freeze frames from her son's wrongful stop, cross-referenced with the new protocols that would have prevented it. Officers shift uncomfortably when she passes around the crumpled warning ticket Thompson issued. Its creases softened from being handled at kitchen tables across 3 boroughs. Youth engagement shows the most dramatic turnaround. The Police Athletic League's basketball games used to draw 20 kids and 6 scowling officers. Now 70 adolescents crowd the courts, including the Rodriguez twins, whose older brother spent 2 years avoiding cops after a mistaken ID. Their laughter carries across the parking lot where their mother once organized protest marches. Business improvement districts report unexpected dividends. Korean grocery owners note shoplifting declines after officers start redirecting homeless individuals to services instead of handcuffing them behind dumpsters. A UC Berkeley study attributes this to the reciprocity principle. Communities police themselves when they believe the system operates fairly. Nighttime foot patrols reveal subtler changes. The officer who used to roust sleepers from Subway grates now carries granola bars and shelter pamphlets. His arrest rate dropped 62%, but emergency calls from transit workers decreased even more. The real metric flashes when a teenager waves at him from a fire escape, a gesture that would have been unthinkable 18 months prior. Religious leaders form an unofficial accountability network. Mosque volunteers text precinct captains about overzealous traffic stops. Synagogue presidents host Know Your Rights workshops in church basements. The Interfaith Council's meeting minutes show a 400% increase in police collaboration requests since the reforms began. Skeptics monitor everything. The Public Defender's Office tracks whether arraignment demographics actually change. Community colleges map police presence versus business investment. Even hopeful observers like Pastor Wilkins keep logs. His notebook fills with incident. Numbers to verify promised follow-ups occur. The local newspaper's police blotter shrinks incrementally. Fewer disturbance calls, more community assist entries. Editors initially suspect censorship until crime data confirms reductions in both offenses and unnecessary enforcement. A viral editorial cartoon depicts the blotter morphing into a neighborhood newsletter. Thompson's presence at a block party draws cautious interest. Residents notice how he positions his body at angles that don't loom over children. How his hands stay visible when sampling pupusas from the Salvadoran vendor he once ticketed for obstructing sidewalk access. Teenagers who formerly crossed the street to avoid him now challenge him to basketball games. Ramirez reviews the latest complaint statistics with measured satisfaction. The numbers tell one story: 218 civilian filings resulting in 19 disciplinary actions. But the qualitative reports reveal more. 78 voluntary conflict resolutions, 43 de-escalations logged as no report necessary, and one handwritten note from a formerly hostile bar owner inviting officers to his daughter's quinceañera. Downtown, construction crews dismantle the old complaint kiosk, its touchscreen sticky from years of nervous fingers. The replacement model offers multilingual options and real-time case tracking. A sticker on its side reads "Last serviced yesterday," where the previous version bore dust from neglect. Miguel Ramirez watches these changes from his apartment window. The view now includes bicycle officers joking with street vendors instead of hassling them. His crooked wrist still aches before rainstorms, but the pills last longer between refills. Some nights he walks past the precinct just to watch recruits stream in and out, their faces unmarked by the cynicism his generation learned early. The reforms face their acid test when summer brings the annual crime surge. Old-school commanders push to reinstitute stop and frisk. Ramirez instead deploys crisis counselors and extends park hours. Arrests rise modestly, while violent incidents drop sharply, a trade-off that silences most critics. The patrol union's concession comes subtly. They stop publishing their weekly soft-on-crime bulletins. Community college researchers later identify the tipping point. It wasn't a policy change or high-profile arrest. Simply the moment patrol, officers started parking their cruisers at lemonade stands. $1 here, a conversation there. The body camera footage from those interactions shows something unprecedented. Cops removing their sunglasses when speaking to children. The precinct's front desk accumulates informal offerings. Homemade cookies after officers help locate a missing cat. A crayon thank you card tucked beside the metal detector. A single tamale wrapped in foil with a post-it. For the cop who didn't draw his gun, no name. Just gratitude left anonymously where everyone can see. Ramirez keeps Miguel's gas station receipt framed beside these tokens. The thermal ink has faded beyond reading, but its lesson remains. Healing moves at the speed of trust. One cautious exchange at a time. The first inquiry came from Albuquerque, a police captain requesting Daniel's training manuals after seeing San Antonio's complaint filings drop 42% in 6 months. The email chain quickly spread to 12 other departments, all asking the same question: how do we replicate your model? Policy diffusion studies show reforms spread fastest when tied to measurable results rather than moral appeals. Daniel's spreadsheets provided both. Chicago PD tested the waters first. They adopted the double-blind complaint system but kept it separate from their main oversight office, a half measure that still yielded a 28% increase in sustained misconduct rulings. Body camera footage from one of their roll calls shows a lieutenant holding up San Antonio's revised use of force guidelines. This isn't theory anymore, it's working next door. The ripple reached the coast by summer. Los Angeles restructured its community liaison program mirroring San Antonio's. down to the multilingual complaint kiosks. NYPD quietly incorporated Daniel's de-escalation drills into academy training after researchers documented their effectiveness. Neither department issued press releases about borrowing tactics from a smaller city. Change often spreads through professional pride rather than policy mandates. Federal studies later confirmed the pattern. Cities adopting at least 3 of Daniel's core reforms saw misconduct complaints fall an average of 19% faster than national rates. The most effective components weren't flashy, just procedural tweaks like randomized case assignments and civilian-led audit boards. Simple mechanisms that cut through institutional blind spots. Resistance followed predictable fault lines. Police unions in 7 states filed identical grievances claiming the new accountability measures violated collective bargaining agreements. All eventually lost in arbitration, but the delays gave cover for hesitant chiefs to slow-walk implementations. The process exposed a truth reformers already knew. Policy adoption isn't binary. Cities absorb change in layers, peeling back resistance one compromised concession at a time. San Antonio became a pilgrimage site for reform-minded officers. Beat cops from Cleveland shadowed Thompson's patrols, watching how he now conducted pedestrian stops, hands visible, tone measured, flashlight angled away from faces. The visitors took notes on tactical details their manuals never covered, like how standing slightly sideways reads as less confrontational than squared shoulders. The Justice Department noticed. They repackaged Daniel's methods into a federal toolkit distributed to 38 consent decree cities. The materials came stripped of San Antonio branding, a bureaucratic compromise to ease adoption in departments allergic to outside solutions. Only the fine print credited the original protocols. Small towns proved unexpectedly receptive. Sheriff's Department in rural Iowa implemented body cam reviews with stunning results. 0 use of force incidents in 8 months. Their secret? Borrowing San Antonio's practice of having officers review their own footage before writing reports. The cognitive dissonance of watching one's own biased decisions created faster change than any reprimand. Quantitative impacts emerged slowly. A University of Pennsylvania study tracked 12 reform-adopting departments versus matched controls. After 2 years, the treatment group showed 37% fewer racial disparities in stops and 53% less litigation payouts. The lead researcher called it the most consistent effect size I've seen in policing studies. Daniel's inbox filled with invitations to speak, FBI roundtables, mayoral summits, even a closed-door session with 3 police union presidents. He declined most, preferring to let the metrics speak. The few events he attended followed. A pattern: skeptical audiences transformed by his gas station receipt anecdote into grudging reconsideration. Thompson inadvertently became an ambassador. His redemption arc, captured in departmental training videos, resonated with officers who'd made similar mistakes. The footage showed his evolution from defiant to reflective, particularly during a scene where he apologized to Maria Gutierrez's family. Other departments began requesting him as a trainer, valuing his credibility as a reformed skeptic. The reforms faced their first real test when a viral arrest video from Milwaukee showed officers violating multiple San Antonio-inspired protocols. Public outrage erupted until someone leaked the department's internal memo. They'd only implemented 2 of Daniel's 15 recommended changes. The partial adoption backfired spectacularly, proving the system worked best holistically. By year 3, subtle indicators confirmed cultural penetration. Law enforcement conferences added accountability procedures tracks where none existed before. Training catalogs featured courses on San Antonio-style community engagement. Even the lexicon shifted, with terms like procedural justice replacing tired euphemisms about bad apples. Academic interest surged. Doctoral students parsed San Antonio's complaint resolution timelines. Economists calculated the municipal savings from avoided lawsuits. Psychologists studied how the reforms affected officer morale. Answer: initially worse, then significantly better. The data painted an unambiguous picture. What began as one chief's vision now constituted a replicable model. Backlash simmered beneath the progress. Anonymous law enforcement forums accused Daniel of selling out the badge. Retirement ceremonies in resistant departments featured coded speeches about real policing. The old guard's resentment only highlighted how thoroughly the paradigm had shifted underneath them. The most telling adoption came from unexpected quarters. A Texas Rangers division implemented modified versions of Daniel's transparency measures for internal affairs. Their case closure rates improved while dismissals dropped, proof the model could work even in traditionally insular units. International inquiries trickled in. A Scottish police delegation spent a week observing San Antonio's community boards. Canadian Mounties requested the bias training curricula. The reforms didn't translate perfectly across legal systems, but the core principles, transparency, consistency, external accountability, proved universally resonant. Miguel Ramirez noticed the changes during his rare outings. Gas stations that once felt like potential danger zones now hosted officers buying coffee like any other customers. His crooked wrist still ached, but he could spot the new recruits, the ones trained under Daniel's system, by how they kept their hands away from their belts during conversations. The precinct's evidence room told the quietest success story. Where once it held boxes of unresolved complaints, now its shelves displayed training manuals bound for other cities. Each shipment contained one unexpected item, a photocopy of Miguel's faded gas station receipt tucked into the appendix. No explanatory note, just a silent reminder of why these reforms mattered. Daniel's calendar showed the ripple's reach. Weekly calls with chiefs from Albuquerque to Albany, all seeking guidance on implementing pieces of his model. He kept each meeting brief, redirecting them to Elena's procedural manuals rather than positioning himself as some reform guru. Sustainable change had to institutionalize beyond any single leader. The true test came when Minneapolis faced its own watershed moment. Their police commissioner flew down unannounced, spending 3 days walking San Antonio's beats. The photos showed him nodding during a community meeting where residents once feared officers now debated zoning laws with them. He left with 2 proposals, one for his city council and one to poach Elena as his new deputy chief. Thompson fielded the most surprising calls, officers from his old union cohort, whispering questions about how the reconciliation process worked. His answers always started the same way. First thing, you gotta watch your own body cam footage from the victim's perspective. The silence on the other end spoke volumes. San Antonio's crime stats held steady through the reforms, disproving the doom predictions. More tellingly, officer retention improved 11% even as accountability measures tightened. Young cops stayed. For the culture shift, veterans retired rather than adapt. The department's demographics tilted younger, more diverse and more open to continued reforms. The National Police Union newsletter finally acknowledged the trend in its third-year opposition piece. Buried in the critique was an unintended compliment. San Antonio's so-called reforms have infected nearly 20% of medium to large departments. The article failed to mention that infection was saving lives, careers, and municipal budgets. On his desk, Daniel kept a map tracking adoption cities. Pushpins clustered first in progressive strongholds, then seeped into unexpected regions. A Georgia county here, a Montana tribal police force there. No sweeping mandate required, just proof that another way worked better. The pins would keep spreading long after his tenure. That was the point. Elena's transparency reports now included an addendum, other municipalities' progress adopting San Antonio's measures. The latest ran 17 pages. She highlighted one entry. El Paso, Daniel's old department, had implemented full-body cam reviews after initially resisting. The circle closed quietly, without fanfare. The morning. Briefing room reflected how deeply the changes had rooted. Rookies debated reasonable suspicion thresholds with the same fervor once reserved for gear comparisons. Sergeants distributed community meeting schedules alongside patrol assignments. Even the coffee mugs had transformed. No more thin blue line insignias, replaced by neutral department logos. Thompson's old locker remained empty, but its presence had morphed from warning to relic. New officers glanced at it curiously, unable to fully imagine the culture that once protected such an officer. The combination lock still hung open, digits, frozen on 1231. Someone had scratched "Remember Why" beneath them in small letters. Miguel's receipt stayed framed in Daniel's office, its edges fraying from being removed for countless presentations. The thermal ink had faded completely, rendering the text illegible. No matter. The story it told no longer belonged to one gas station, one family, one department. It had become something larger, a case study in how to turn systemic failure into systemic change. The real impact showed on body camera footage from across the country. In Denver, an officer crouched to speak with a Latino child instead of looming over him. In Memphis, a cop returned a dropped wallet rather than running its owner's name for warrants. Small moments that collectively rewrote what policing could be. None of those officers likely knew they were enacting San Antonio protocols. They just knew it worked. Daniel stood at his office window watching nightfall wash over the city, the glass cool against his fingertips. 3 months in, and the complaint log still arrived weekly, each case a reminder that systems don't bend without breaking something first. Down in records, clerks digitized decades of misconduct files that should have triggered investigations, years earlier. The weight of it lingered in the station's air, thick as August humidity. Accountability measures had teeth now. Mandatory body cameras activated automatically when officers stepped from their vehicles. Biased policing reports required command staff review within 48 hours. But resistance festered in unspoken ways. The sudden unavailability of senior officers. For training sessions, the backlogged IA cases awaiting documentation. Real culture change moved like tectonic plates, measurable only over years. He thumbed through the latest use of force reports. 2 incidents mirrored Thompson's old patterns. Escalation first, questions never. Both involved rookies trained under the old regime. Retraining those habits would take generations of recruits. The polygraph unit's expansion helped. 7 applicants. This month washed out when questioned about racial attitudes. Small victories. The real test came at tomorrow's union meeting. The contract renegotiation included his proposed changes to the disciplinary matrix, a direct challenge to the protections that had shielded Thompson. Union reps would fight hard to preserve arbitration loopholes. They always did. Past chiefs backed down when strikes were threatened. Daniel's notes for the meeting included photos of Jose Luis Garcia's bruised ribs from last month's bogus resisting arrest charge. Still, progress registered in quiet moments. Yesterday, he'd watched Thompson correct a rookie's profiling joke in the locker room. The young cop had flushed crimson at the reprimand. That more than complaint stats showed the shift, fear of consequences replacing pride in misbehavior. But department lore ran deep. Just last week, someone placed a toy badge in Daniel's mailbox, its gold paint scratched down to the plastic. Civilian oversight committees were filing their first quarterly reports next week. Initial backlash from rank and file had been predictable. Outsiders don't understand the job. Yet early collaborative reviews of patrol routes had already redistricted narcotics units away from over-policed neighborhoods. Residents noticed. Church leaders reported fewer driving while brown complaints in the 7th District. The knock came at 500, Dominguez with coffee and the overnight summary. Another protest planned outside the courthouse where Thompson's appeal hearing would begin in 6 hours. Internal whispers claimed the old guard had compiled dirt on Daniel's father's activist past. Let them try. The body cam footage of Thompson kneeing that handcuffed teenager spoke for itself in any courtroom. Budget season loomed, and city council wanted measurable outcomes for last year's de-escalation training investment. The numbers told a fractured story, excessive force complaints down but still triple the national rate. That's what decades of impunity bought you. He'd shown them the before and after patrol footage, same scenarios, different outcomes when officers used tactical pauses. Instead of tasers, his calendar alert chimed, community meet and greet at the precinct in 90 minutes. The last one drew hecklers calling him a quota hire. Tonight would feature parents whose kids now wore de-escalation trainers' phone numbers on their school IDs. He slid the Garcia photos into his folio. Below them, the early draft of next year's recruitment brochure featured Officer Mendez. 3 generations of her family pulled over on this same stretch of highway before she joined the force. At the armory checkpoint, a rookie hesitated before waving him through. The young officer's fingers twitched near his belt, old instincts clashing with the new protocols. Daniel slowed just enough for the kid to notice the chief's badge before snapping a textbook salute. Muscle memory could be rebuilt. Systems bent 1 procedure, 1 cop, 1 traffic stop at a time. The city's first Latino police chief turned up his collar against the drizzle and stepped into the storm. The story began with a routine stop, one officer's bias meeting its match in an unexpected badge. What unfolded became a blueprint for reform. Systems exposed, power inverted, hard truths confronted. Daniel Ramirez's rise proved symbolic. Change could spark real accountability when paired with unflinching action. Old patterns die slowly. Union pushback and lingering resentments reveal how deep the roots of dysfunction grow. Yet the metrics speak. Fewer complaints, more trust, lives altered by each reformed protocol. This isn't an ending. It's proof that transformation starts when someone refuses to look away. The badge shines brighter when it reflects every face. The work continues,